Hi, I'm Scott Curtis, and I'm Chief Operating Officer of Antibe Therapeutics. It's my pleasure to walk you through our corporate presentation today. We think we've made a game-changing discovery in the treatment of pain and inflammation. At a glance, we are a novel anti-inflammation platform that leverages the unique properties of hydrogen sulfide with broad potential across many different diseases and indications. Our lead program is targeting an acute pain, an area that is in desperate need of new alternatives, largely due to the growing opioid epidemic. This candidate is slated to start a phase 2 trial beginning of next year with top-line data in Q2 of 2024. We also have an emerging discovery pipeline that is starting to take shape. And finally, we have a strong corporate position to propel us into our next stage of growth with a strong balance sheet that funds us well beyond phase 2 data. 20 years ago, our founder, Dr. John Wallace, made an important discovery. He discovered that hydrogen sulfide has potent anti-inflammatory properties. Since then, the science has truly exploded. We now know that hydrogen sulfide plays a whole series of roles and mechanisms in the body, such as ATP generation and cellular repair. In fact, the potential of hydrogen sulfide is so broad that it allows us to target a whole series of indications. Right now, we are going after pain and exploring autoimmune indications, but down the road, potentially, we might be pursuing other areas such as respiratory illness and neurodegenerative disease. Here you see our pipeline. Our lead drug, otanoproxazole, has several near-term catalysts on the horizon. It's targeting acute pain. This fall, we plan to initiate and complete a short PK/PD study, which will inform the doses for a phase 2 trial that we are hoping to get off the ground in Q1 of next year, and top-line data we anticipate in Q2 of next year. Looking at the rest of the pipeline, we do have an emerging discovery program with an IBD program with several candidates identified, and we also have another anti-inflammatory therapy that we expect to make an announcement in the next couple of months. Turning our minds to otanoproxazole and doing a bit of a deeper dive on that particular asset, we are targeting the attractive market of acute pain. It is a large market, 25 billion globally, and includes several different areas, with postoperative pain representing about half of that opportunity. We expect to obtain a broad acute pain label, and we do that by running 2 different surgical models in our clinical studies, which should enable us to obtain a broad acute pain label. Postoperative pain represents the largest share of the acute pain market. We refer to it as the surgeon's dilemma. And the reason we do that is because surgeons today really have only 2 choices to treat pain post-surgery. These are the opioids, which of course have the high addiction potential, and the NSAIDs, the anti-inflammatory painkillers, which have tremendous GI safety baggage. I don't need to dwell on this slide. We're all aware that the opioid epidemic is getting worse as each year goes by, and the world desperately needs novel new alternatives to opioids. On the other hand, the anti-inflammatory painkillers, which includes the likes of naproxen, aspirin, and ibuprofen, they have serious GI safety concerns. And it's not just a concern in the long term, but also in the short term. The bleeding ulcer that you see here is only after 2 days of NSAID use. So clearly, the world needs safer NSAIDs, and also it's very relevant to acute pain and short-term use. Our lead drug, otanoproxazole, is a novel hydrogen sulfide releasing NSAID. It's a novel chemical entity and was recently reformulated to tailor it to the acute pain opportunity by promising rapid onset. And this is very important, as when you wake up in the recovery room at a surgery, you want pain relief really fast, within minutes. And our new formulation is poised to deliver on that promise. Our lead indication, as I've already mentioned, is acute pain, which includes the likes of postoperative pain, but a whole series of other smaller but still really important indications such as dysmenorrhea and migraine and gout. What's interesting about this asset is that it is already de-risked due to the fact that it has been in already 3 phase 2 trials. And that's because several years ago, we were going after chronic pain. And in that pursuit of chronic pain, we were gearing up for phase 3. We had great phase 2 proof of concept data at that point. And in preparations for phase 3, we ran a longer 4-week study. Unfortunately, towards the end of that study, we did encounter some elevated liver enzymes in a small number of subjects. Unfortunately, the percentage was higher than the norm. All NSAIDs are known to cause elevated liver enzymes. We were just doing it more than that, and it did preclude us from continuing our journey in chronic pain. What we did do instead, we poured over all the data, and it became clear that the path forward was a pivot to acute pain. And we have now done extensive liver safety modeling, which predicts that for all the acute treatment regimens we envision, we predict no liver toxicity issues. I should finally say, just to close off on this comment, that we have not given up on chronic pain. It is now on the back burner, but we expect to find ways to enter that valuable and important market. Hydrogen sulfide is very applicable to counteracting the GI toxicity that stems from NSAIDs, and not only the stomach, but also the intestine. In fact, hydrogen sulfide maps so beautifully to counteracting this damage, it explains why we have such tremendous data. Look at this here. This is from 2018. This is our phase 2 GI safety trial. It's a head-to-head trial. Our drug in the orange compared to naproxen after 14 days of administration. And as you can see, the healthy volunteers on naproxen, 42% of them encountered stomach ulcers, only 2.5% on our drug. Looking to the graph on the right, these are the large 5 millimeter ulcers, the ones that can potentially kill you. 24% incidence of naproxen, only 0% with our drug. So it is clear to us that we have solved the GI safety issue. And what we need to now show is efficacy in acute pain. Does it deliver the pain relief required in that setting? What we have done, though, is shown efficacy in chronic pain. What you see here is data from a 14-day phase 2 dose-ranging efficacy trial in OA pain, osteoarthritis pain. This was done back in 2020. And what we've done here on this slide is we overlaid the change in pain, in WOMAC pain, that's the scoring that you use to assess the pain. So we layered on the change in pain of the 3 doses of our drug. Those are the 3 orange dots on the bottom of this graph. And we compared that to a meta-analysis of NSAID trials. These are all chronic pain trials that were done over the last 15 to 20 years. And as you can see, the average is that vertical dotted line. We are situated nicely to the left of that average, which is a very good place to be. It tells us that this drug has really strong horsepower as an analgesic. What we look to do now is replicate this type of profile in an acute pain setting. We've also done now some third-party commercial assessments. Most recently, last fall, we did a third-party assessment for the US market looking at acute pain. That's a classic market access reimbursement study that involved a series of payer and clinician interviews, and we were quite pleased with the results. We saw raw switching rates in excess of 50% among surgeons, which tells us that surgeons are in a desperate position as they desperately require and demand new alternatives to opioids. The peak revenue projection in this market was $1 billion. That was obviously quite pleasing to see, and it's just in the US market. We also have done a strategic positioning project that has validated the best-in-class positioning of this drug. And speaking of that positioning, here it is. We expect to be a robust pain-relieving NSAID with exceptional GI safety, a rapid onset profile to really address the need for rapid pain relief, particularly in post-operative pain. And of course, by being an NSAID, we're non-addictive, which is very important as the world continues to grapple with the opioid epidemic. Finally, we do have a strong IP position with our patent protection now extending out to 2043. If our drug is approved, it would be the first novel oral analgesic introduced to the market in more than 20 years. Looking at our development plan for tenofloxacin, we're coming off about an 18-month period where we really had our heads down manufacturing the new formulation, getting it scaled up, which we now, happy to say, have our pills ready for clinical studies this fall. So looking at the fall, we will be running a very fast PK/PD study that will confirm the safety of the new formulation, but also inform the dosing regimens to use in the phase 2 bunionectomy trial. We are planning to get that off the ground in Q1 of next year and have top-line data by Q2 next year as well. Looking beyond that, we would then schedule an end of phase 2 meeting with FDA and get the phase 3 program underway. The phase 2 program, I should just highlight, the phase 2 trial that I'm referencing here is a classic acute pain trial. It's a bunionectomy model. That is sort of the gold standard surgical model that developers typically use to gain approval in acute pain. Looking at the rest of the pipeline, I have mentioned that we have an emerging discovery program. One of the areas we're looking at is inflammatory bowel disease. We now have a lead and backup candidates chosen. We're now running them through animal efficacy models. It's an attractive market, just like acute pain. It's globally a $16 billion market opportunity. We think we potentially have a better working mesalamine. Mesalamine is the first-line therapy for this market. Inflammatory bowel disease really means ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Often when you are suffering from these illnesses, you typically would go on mesalamine as a first position. What we think we can do, hopefully, is delay the need for you to switch from mesalamine to some of the more expensive and side effect prone therapies. These therapies include corticosteroids and biologics, and although they can work better, they also come with some serious side effects, and they're expensive. So it's best to try to stay on the first line therapy if you can. We hope to have more news on this asset in the coming months. Looking at our corporate position, we do have a very strong team in place. I'll just highlight Dr. Joe Stauffer. He's our Chief Medical Officer. He was a former FDA reviewer in the same division that will ultimately approve our drugs, and a serial Chief Medical Officer for several pain companies. We do have a great board in place as well. It's chaired by Robert Hoffman. Robert was formerly the CFO of Antibe Therapeutics, a well-known acute pain company that trades on NASDAQ. We have world-class scientific advisors at our fingertips, includes the likes of Dr. Lou Ignarro. Lou won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his work on nitric oxide. He was awarded that in 1998. Nitric oxide is another gaseous mediator like hydrogen sulfide. A few years ago, we put in place what we call our partnering advisory board as we turn our minds to commercialization and ultimately partnering. We thought it'd be a good idea to have some of these guys in a board that we could consult on a regular basis. I should say none of these guys really need any introductions. Take Angus Russell. He was formerly the CEO of Shire, and he helped build that into a multi-billion-dollar company. It was later acquired by Takeda for $60-odd billion. Here's the standard cap table slide. A couple of things to highlight here for you. You can see our cash position there at 34 million. You might also see that our market cap is less than that. We are actually still trading below cash. So definitely an interesting time to look at our company today. We have insider ownership of nearly 10%. We have 5 analysts covering us, including 2 in the United States. In closing, it is definitely an interesting time to really pay attention to Antibe. We're coming off a quiet 2-year period, and we're now getting back into clinical studies this fall, going after acute pain with a brand new formulation. And we expect to start phase 2 for our lead asset at the beginning of next year, with a top-line data readout in Q2 of next year. Our discovery pipeline is starting to take shape, and we have a strong balance sheet that funds us well beyond our phase 2 readout. With that, I'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation, and it would encourage you to please follow along in our journey here as we embark on our next stage of growth. Thank you.